Hello my friends, welcome back to another episode of CivOps Gear, reviewing all the EDC gear for everyone from the discerning civilian all the way to the experienced operator. In one of my very first episodes, I talked about this CRKT Jumbones, a park design that is the jumbo mega size of the Crossbones, a pretty well-known and established design from Parks Design and CRKT. But today I just got in from BladeOps this new limited edition Crossbones. This is a limited edition M390 steel blade with titanium scales. And this is number 220 of 500, so it is a numbered limited edition with M390 steel and, as I said, titanium scales. Now, the only thing is that this, its action is good, but I remember when I got this Jumbones in, taking it apart and messing around with it and oiling it up, cleaning it and oiling it up, made it perform just a lot better. So we're going to do that exact same thing today again with this limited edition Crossbones with the M390 and the titanium. Now, this knife you're going to see is in a second when we take it apart, uses an IKBS ball bearing system, and which was created by a knife designer named Flavi Ikoma, and I always hope I'm saying that right. It's spelled Flavio Ikoma, but I'm pretty sure he pronounces it Flavi Ikoma. So anyway, he's a great knife designer, and he's the creator of the IKBS system. The IKBS system comes in two forms: caged and uncaged bearings. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, that the Jumbones was using an uncaged system. I'm hoping maybe this will be a caged system, but I'm never really lucky enough for that. Now, the uncaged system is not difficult to deal with, but it's a little time consuming because all of the tiny little ball bearings are separate. They're not protected. You can take each one out individually. The advantage to that, of course, is that you've got more than you need, and if you lose one or two, it's okay. The knife still functions correctly, but it is sometimes difficult to handle them, manipulate them, and get them all back in where they belong. So in those cases, a little bit of grease is extremely useful. And if you ever listen to Flavi talk about the IKBS system, he always recommends that you use a little bit of grease, not as a lube, but as he says, like more as a medium to hold the bearings in place. So we're going to take our T6 and we're going to get started here with the pocket clip. And we will pop our pocket clip right out. Okay, we'll start here on the rear. There's only two scale screws and then your pivot screw. So you can see there is not a lot holding this knife together. It is scales with a back spacer, and there are only two screws that go into the back spacer, minus the pocket clip, of course. And it is a frame lock on this one, which is interesting because the Jumbones is a liner lock, but this one most certainly is a frame lock. And you see what I'm saying? The action's good, but I think it can be better. It doesn't really want to fall back into place, and the detent seems very tight. So I think on an IKBS system, you should be able to get that to lock up with a little bit less a little bit less force. So we're going to move on to our scale screws here, and we'll hope that there is not so much Loctite that we strip a screw. T6s sometimes are vulnerable to being stripped. Okay, and of course the pivot is a T8. So we will take that screw out. We'll move on to our T8. And, oh, all right, we got it. We got it without any stripping, which is always a big, big relief. You know, it feels very, very tight. Even now that I've loosened it up that much, it still is very, very tight. So I think maybe we will make a little progress here in getting it to perform just a little bit better. Look at all the Loctite in there. That's okay. All right, now let's see here. So it wants to obviously come apart this way. All right, coming apart. All right, pretty simple. And you know what? This might actually be, let's see. Oh yes, these are caged bearings. Yes. Look at all the gunk though. There is some gunk. All right, so we've got our washers, and then we've got our bearings. Let's get this bearings out. And these are caged bearings, so these are even easier to work with. This is a good sign, a good sign. Let's have a look at all of the gunk in there. Look at all that grease. And this may have something to do. Now see, it looks like there's even a little bit of ickiness maybe in our detent hole. So, okay, we're going to get all of this nice and cleaned up. Let's push our pivot through. How do we get our pivot through? Oh, look on the pivot. There's a lot of icky gunk. All right, that's okay. We're going to get it all cleaned up. Let's pull that pin out. See if we can push our pivot through. Our pivot seems to be not wanting to come out. Okay. Let's see here. We want to get our caged bearings up and off of this pivot. So that's step one. All right, got that. And it certainly does appear that there is a washer on this side. How are we going to get that washer out? Let's see. Okay, the washer's off of there. Let's make sure we don't have anything here. No, we seem to be good. All right, so this really does appear to be a matter of, you know what, maybe we can get it off when we, interesting. It certainly doesn't seem that the pivot wants to come out of this side of the scale. Very interesting. Okay, we will just start taking steps and see what happens. But certainly I think we can improve the performance here just based on the initial look of what we've got going on here. So let's take some rubbing alcohol and let's start cleaning this guy up. All right. I'm hoping to see some of you at the Cal Knives show coming up in 2 days on Saturday, on February 25th, which is just in 2 days, out in Brea, California, which I'm not going to lie to you, it's a schlep for me, but it's Cal Knives. So I'm going to go, and I will be stopping by the ProTech booth looking for an operator rock eye, which I've been trying to get my hands on. Let's use a Q-tip, and while this is still wet with rubbing alcohol, let's try to get that cleaned up inside there. And we'll try to get it cleaned up inside this side here. All right, good deal. All right, let's see, that looks better. So anyway, yeah, I hope maybe some of you will be coming out to the Cal Knives show on Saturday, and we can say hello, shake hands, show off knives. I will be there with some cool stuff in my pockets, hoping to start conversations. All right, let's wipe off that blade too. All righty, that looks a little bit better. How about that detent hole? All right, now let's clean off the inside of this scale. These are titanium scales, as I mentioned already. It's interesting to see this one as a frame lock rather than a liner lock. Let's try to, while there's still some rubbing alcohol in there. All right, and there's the detent ball, which should not really be causing the kind of issues it's causing. I wonder if maybe it was something on the blade. So let's see. Let's try to clean this pivot and see if maybe we can't get this washer to come off. Oh, yeah, that pivot was a little dirty, huh? All right. You know, if you are new to taking your knives apart, all I can tell you is what I had to learn for myself, which is do not be afraid of taking your knives apart. Start with simple knives. You know, start with manual folders that are either liner locks or frame locks. You know, don't start with like an automatic with an axis lock. You know, start with something simple without a lot of moving parts. Boy, you know, I think that's a washer, but it certainly doesn't want to move. So maybe it is, maybe it's not. All right, last thing is to take the bearings and make sure those are clean. It is a huge luxury to be dealing with caged ball bearings as opposed to the uncaged, if for no other reason than only for the time saving. Because the uncaged, you know, it's not like they're any more difficult. It's just that it takes a lot more time and patience and steady hands to work with them. So, okay, let's put you back on there. All right, and also, you know, I don't find that for the caged ones, we really need the grease. I know that Flavia Coma says to use grease, but frankly, I'm just going to use a little oil because I just don't find that. Now, absolutely, with the uncaged ones, no question about it, you need the grease because you need it to hold those ball bearings in place within the little track in the blade. But let's see. For the caged ones, I find that you really don't need the grease to hold them in place. I've always found it just better to oil them up. All right, that looks good. Let's clean this washer off. Come on. Come on, get in my belly. Or in my hand, as the case may be. Get in my hand. All right. Yeah, so anyway, if you are new, learn from my fear. Do not be afraid of taking apart your knives because you know what? It's not like taking apart your car. There's only so many parts in a knife, and you will absolutely figure out how to put it back together. And in most cases, you'd be very surprised how much it sort of just wants to put itself back together. In other words, what I mean is, you'd be surprised. There's in any sort of a decent knife, even in some of the ones that are not decent, there's very little tolerances when it comes to like the pivot. And, it's not very common that you'll put a knife back together and all of a sudden it'll be completely off center or have a lot of blade play. These are things that you'll easily fix with just messing around with the tightness of your pivot screws and things like this. So do not be afraid. You can make such vast improvements to the performance of your knives by taking them apart. I also want to give a little shout out to BladeOps, who is one of my favorite retailers. They sent me this guy today, and gotta love BladeOps. I shop at all of the regular names that we all do. From Blade HQ and Knife Center to BladeOps, Knife Joy, Knives Ship Free. GPK and PVK Vegas and, bunch of other ones. But, what is this gook here? Is that liner lock? Seems to be. And I'm wondering, when you go to tighten this down, that's going to cause an issue. So just going to peel that away a little bit. All right, that's enough. Just blow that off. Blow that off like a bad date. All right, so let's take just a little bit of number 5 nano oil. Not going to need anything heavy here. These ball bearings are going to do most of the work themselves, but we'll put just a little. Oh, geez Louise. Oh my goodness, what have I done there? What have I done? All right. Let us put just a tiny bit. Oh my God, what is happening here? What is happening here? It's like this number 5's been in prison wanting to get out. As soon as I took the top off it. And a little bit in the detent hole, and that should be good. All right. I'm not one who's ever really been worried about using too much oil, because what's the worst thing that happens? You leak a little bit of oil? Oh no, that's not really that big of a deal. Put a tiny little bit in there. Move it around a little bit. Okay, we'll put our washer back in. All right, what's the big deal? A little bit of oil leaks out. That's not really a huge issue. So, oh, wait, one more thing. We forgot our pin. Get in there. Are you too good for your home? Get in there. There we go. All right. Now we'll put this guy back on. All right. And line up these scale screws right back here. Lined up, snapped into place. We will fix this tiny little gap between the scale and the blade once we put in our pivot screw, which is right here. And we'll back it up just a little to make sure that our threads are catching correctly. And we'll take our T8 and go to work putting this guy back together. I can tell you it's screwing back in a lot easier than it was to unscrew it. All right. Now before we put the scale screws back in, we'll check, we'll see that we are off center pretty good, but we're going to adjust all that, no problem. Let's check the action. Oh yes, that's much better. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our scale screws in here. Come on, little tiny fellas. And then once we know exactly how we feel about the placement of the pivot screw, we'll back it out a little bit and put a little bit of blue thread lock on there. All right, but meanwhile, we shall get this scale locked back in place. And of course, the pocket clip is what we will do last. All right, that's in place. That's in place. And now we will adjust this a little bit. Let's see. And tightening it down is making it come back to center. We might have, no, did not tighten it too much. Sort of the beauty of the IKBS ball bearing system is that you'd have to really tighten it a lot. You'd have to actually crush those ball bearings. So let's see. Check for blade play. Absolutely none. Up, down, forget it. Not even close. Side to side. No, doesn't feel like it. Much better. Oh, yes. Much better. It still doesn't quite want to drop itself into place, but you know, I'll tell you something else that's interesting is the frame lock side, which is actually the rear side, this being the show side, this being the rear side with the frame lock. If you can see, since it's a frame lock, the entire frame is sort of the lock bar. You can see how long the lock bar goes back here. And if you look at, when you look up along the side of the blade, it might actually look like it's off center. But when you look at the tip, you see that the tip is pretty dead center. So it's really just, the interesting part is that the scale with the frame lock is not quite as close to the blade as the show side is, But you know, this is a model with very little tolerance between the blade and the scales. Oh yes, that's so much better. Yep. Okay. Let's see. The frame lock definitely engages, but I don't know. What do you guys think? That's only like 15% lockup, maybe 20%, maybe 15%. It's not a very huge amount of lockup, but it, yeah. Oh, that's so much better. And of course, you know, this is not a reflection of BladeOps at all. And in fact, frankly, it's not even really a reflection on anybody. It's just, you know, you put out 500 of these and, you know, you just pile the grease and everything into place, and, you know, they sit for a little while, and then, you know, they're going to get icky. So, you know, anybody who takes delivery of a new knife, there's a lot of us who the first thing we do is take it apart, because we say, however it comes to us, I can make it better. And that's what we've just done here. So let's see, let's take our pocket clip. We'll put our pocket clip back on, and then we will be all done. This was a rather successful venture. Let's see, this is going to be a little bit of a thing, because we want to get that screw in there and hold it in place while we get that onto the scale where it goes. Now let's see if we get that screw in there. All right, got it. Back it out and put it in drive. And there we go. Strong pocket clip. It would be a deep carry clip. You can see by the shape of it, it would be a deep carry clip, except it sits rather low on the scale. If it were raised up a little bit, this whole knife would kind of disappear into your pocket. But as it sits, you can see just how much of that knife is going to come out the top of your pocket. Let's see, right there, it'll sit at just that angle. So that's still pretty good. One more good check. Oh yeah. Oh yes, 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 thank you. So much better. Let's take our little cloth here and give it one more wipe down. All right. All right, there we go. Looking good, performing good. The blade looks better. Everything looks better. It's nice and clean now. Our Park Design limited edition titanium scale M390 steel crossbones. You know, even the detent feels better. It's still significant, but it doesn't feel sticky anymore. Yes, so much better. Hey, you guys, if you have anything to say about this, please make sure, leave it in the comments right below. And make sure to like, subscribe, share this video with a friend who either loves CRKT or Crossbones or just loves taking crap apart. Also, make sure to follow our photo recaps of all of our reviews on Instagram at CivOps Gear. Hey, I'll see you guys all next time. You know, I'll just give you a sneak peek. This came in also from BladeOps today, from Boker. That's not the one that came in. This limited edition M390 with jade scales, Boker Urban Trapper, just came in today. This is also an M390 with these jade scales. And this is also a frame lock. This one, as opposed to a flipper, this one is a front flipper. And this is a limited edition as well. This is an exclusive. So next video, we'll probably take this apart. Although I have to tell you, This doesn't really need anything. This is pretty much good to go. Pretty cool little Boker Urban Trapper though, isn't it? See you guys on the very next CivOps Gear review. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.